I want to transition to hashtag Operation Peachy. So you mentioned you have a little tab called Mysteries. And this
Yep.
is a mystery that you probably had on there and were able to cross off. So for those of you who have seen Joey's page, you may have noticed last week that one of Mark's long lost basses, this is an Ernie Ball Music Man. It's peach colored. That's why it's called Peachy. It was found. And not only was it found, it's in Joey's possession. So let's chat about that. I want to hear, and I want the listeners to hear exactly kind of how this came to be, how it ended up in your hands, and then kind of future thoughts on it.
Yeah, man, it's again, much like the compendium, it is a community effort to get Peachy to me. On Cheshire Cat's birthday, Babooshka from the community hit me up. It was a very frantic message. First thing I remember, Friday morning, because it completely derailed the rest of my Friday. He was like, dude, I need a second set of eyes. I feel like I think I found one of Mark's bases, but I'm not sure. I need you to like make sure that I'm not going crazy. And he sent me the Craigslist link, and I looked at it, and it was, I mean, is this gorgeous peach bass? And it's like, wait a second, how can we be sure? And then he immediately followed that up with, he did his own Davy Jones-esque analyzation of a headstock photo, right? So the seller on Craigslist included a great shot of the headstock showing the wood grain patterns. Babooshka, using one of Davey's old photos from '98, was able to zoom in enough and get clear enough image of the wood grain patterns, the most distinct ones, because again, it's a washed out '98 photo, right? You're not getting high def images here. They're an exact match. Like the headstock wood grains are an exact match. And I immediately hit up Allan Corona. He built one of Mark's basses, Gin. I've got an Allan Corona bass hanging up behind me. Dude knows, he knows wood beyond just instruments. He knows wood. And so I was like, is there any way that like wood grain will ever be identical? Like spot on, you know, millimeter by millimeter, could it ever match? And he was like, no, that's just the way that trees grow, the way that works. Not going to happen.
Right.
And that sold me. Once Allan let me know, like, no, that doesn't happen. Babooshka let me know that, like, hey, I tried hitting this guy up. I haven't gotten a response. I don't want this to get lost, is what he told me. As you might expect, he was hesitant to share it because who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't want to own one of Mark's lost bases? But he didn't want it to get lost again. And to his credit, Babooshka hit me up and was like, listen, reach out, see if he'll respond to you. And sheer serendipity, the guy called me back later that afternoon. And he and I started talking. And it became clear that this man, he had Peachy for the last 20 years. So
wow.
I'll back up real quick now that we're at the stage of how did this guy get Peachy? So Peachy was made, the manufacture date is February 18th, 1998. The very first time that I have proof of us seeing Peachy. Now, this doesn't mean it's the first appearance, just the first time that I have found video or photo evidence, February 23rd, 98 in Kansas. So the timing is right. We know that Mark had it and used it primarily through the summer of 98. It debuted on Conan O'Brien. Well, not a debut, but like the national debut of Peachy was March 17th, 1998. That's when I released like, oh shit, we've got it. It just felt like a good 25th anniversary. So Mark had it, used it a ton throughout the summer, started to wean off of it in the fall. And from what we know from Adam from Phoenix TX is that Mark gave it to him during, was 98. 98 had to have been the Poo Poo PP tour.
It was the end of Poo Poo PP.
Yeah.
Because we started discussing this theory. And to me, I felt like I looked at the dates Yeah, well, actually, you keep going because we need to hit on the Adam Phoenix TX component a little bit as well. But in 1998, Mark is playing 3 Ernie Ball Music Man Stingrays that he just got. There's a peachy one, there's the baby blue, and then there's green.
Yep. So he plays baby blue at the beginning of 98, then brings it back around towards fall and the end of 98. Don't know why, but he transitioned Peachy out towards the end of the summer. I think that's probably when he got Mr. Green. And towards the end of River Phoenix's stint on the Poo Poo Pee Pee tour, Mark gifted Adam, their bassist, Peachy. Adam has Peachy until, and again, this is where things get a little muddled, right? Has it until 2002, 2003. He kept it until then River Phoenix becomes Phoenix TX. They break up fall of 2002. And it's around then that he sells Peachy. Word is he offered it back to Mark at the time, but at the time, Blink is on top of the world. Mark's playing these awesome Fender jazz-bodied basses. What does he need a Music Man for? Yeah. So Mark declines, and Adam either sells it to a random person or he sells it to this vintage and high-end guitar shop in, I don't know my parts of LA, so I'm not even going to pretend. It's a northern part of LA. So it's either Adam who sells it to that shop or the person he sold it to who sells it to that shop. And then the seller in 2023, his friend owned that shop. And he remembers visiting him in there and just falling in love with this color because this is an immensely rare color, right? I don't know how many other, I think they call it salmon pink. I actually just heard from Ernie Ball yesterday about what color they might have been calling it. But pink salmon is what they called it in that era. So I don't know how many of those were made. I don't know how common it is to see that color. This is the only one that I've seen. So this guy falls in love with it. He loves the color, the way it plays. His friend's like, hey, why don't you take it home? If you like it, you can buy it. And that's exactly what happened. So this old school guitarist, this fellow he's been playing around Southern California in huge bands doing like amp work or playing guitar, playing bass as like backing bands. Super sweet fella. Kept it for the last 20 years, took amazing care of it, loved it, and just hadn't been playing it too much. And I absolutely felt bad not telling him that, hey man, we think this is Mark Hoppus's bass. But he's the kind of person that I'm going to meet up with him. The next time I'm in LA, I want to meet up with him, take him out to drinks, let him know, hey, this is what you had. This is what's been going on with it. I think he would appreciate him being such a prolific musician himself. I think he would love seeing how it all came around. But yeah, he took amazing care of it and threw it up on Craigslist and kept it from going to people who were lowballing him. He kept it from going to resellers and other music shops, right? He told me that he had a bunch of interest in this thing, but he didn't let it go because he wanted to make sure that it went to someone who actually cared about it and wanted it, which just made like, how do you not? That's just so damn heartwarming. That's how I felt about any of the basses that I've sold, is like, I'll hold out for someone who might be able to pay a little bit less if they're going to like if they want it, if this is what they've been looking for, right? There's that.
For sure.
You want it to be taken care of. And so this bass had been listed for a month when Babooshka got a hold of me. It had been on Craigslist for a month. I couldn't believe it. And so I'm up in the Pacific Northwest, right? It's not like LA is a quick trip for me. So I had to start figuring out, okay, how am I going to get this? Because he didn't want to deal with packing it up himself or accepting, Venmo or PayPal payments or anything like that. Totally understandable, right? He wants to just hand the bass off and give cash. I'm not going to fault anyone for that. Thankfully, I know a ton of people in LA, and some of the folks that I know are Katy and Stembo from the broader Blink community. They are super passionate Blink fans. They've hung out with Mark. I think they played video games on one of his Twitch streams. Fantastic people. And they also lived in the northern-ish part of LA. So I looped them in. They were totally game. They picked it up, took such great care of it, helped me then get it shipped up to me. Oh man, like I said, community effort to find it. Babooshka, just ever since he joined the Discord, he told me he had just and knew that Peachy was missing. He made it like his passion project to find it. And he would just like troll Craigslist and Music Go Round and Guitar Center and all these sites, Facebook Marketplace, in cities where it was like suspected to have been. And dude, he found it. He found Peachy. Absolutely boggles my mind. But from Babooshka, then bringing it to me and getting, Allan to confirm that no, wood can't be replicated. Yeah, it could be a veneer, but that's not something that Ernie Ball was doing. They make their shit by hand. So from that then to Katy, it was just this fantastic community effort to bring one of the lost bases back into the community so that it doesn't get lost again.
Yeah, that's something that I'm always appreciative of. Is it's like, I don't care who has it or how much they paid for it, but I just want to know it's in good, safe hands.
Yeah.
And cherished. I mean, that's what's most important to me. But I do want to go back to, I guess, the disappearance a little bit here, because this is something that I think we've chatted about a little bit. So Mark gives it away to Adam from Phoenix TX. And he eventually, in some capacity, sells it back, or sells it in general. Mm-hmm. We suspect probably around 0203. And the reason that we know that, because for years, I didn't know that. Nobody knew where the hell Peachy was. It was just gone. And what's crazy is a couple weeks ago, Mark woke up out of nowhere and pinged on Discord. He said, "Hey, I feel like I gave Peachy to Adam from Phoenix TX." Isn't that what he said?
Yep.
Like exactly.
Yep. He literally he was dreaming about Peachy.
Yeah. So out of the blue, Mark had that thought. And what's interesting is at that point in time, I Googled, Adam Lewis, Phoenix TX. And sure enough, there was a picture of him on stage that looked like it was from 1999, 2000, right around that time, with fucking Peachy. And it's like, okay, so stuff is starting to line up a little bit. Now, also at that time, Stefan from Gear 182 had apparently had a conversation in some capacity with Adam, and Adam had confirmed that, yes, it was given to him. So Stefan had that in his back pocket, which I don't blame him. There's shit I don't release. There's shit I know that I'm not releasing yet either. But that was clearly the time to release that. So Stefan was able to confirm that. I actually have since gotten in touch with Adam to double source that, and I will say, don't bother him. He was not particularly. He was not particularly. He was not particularly pleasant when I reached out to him, and I suspect. My theory, anytime somebody sells something, especially of significant value, the reality is they probably needed the money. So there may be a little bit of, he may be embarrassed or just bummed, or maybe it's just something that he doesn't want to think about. Oh, fuck, I had to get rid of this Mark Hoppus bass. It's such a huge bummer. But that is kind of where that mystery finally started to shape up. It's like, oh, shit, this totally checks out. If you look at the last date of the Poo Poo Pee Pee tour, it's like October 98. My theory is that Mark maybe gave it to him, or, at that time, at the last show, going away gift, or Mark was also managing them at that time. Yeah. If you think about the next few months, we know they started recording Enema. He's using Greenie. And then a few months into 1999, they're on Fender. He's never going to need an Ernie Ball again. Nope. So it's fascinating, that little time frame there. But it's clear that that bass was given away to Adam. Adam sold it for whatever reason. And then eventually the dude that you found it from had it for 20 years, which is fucking crazy. Yeah. And I was going to ask, I had never seen that color really from a commercial standpoint either. So, did they ever even publicly release that color, or do we know?
It was a request only. The pink salmon color was only by request, or at least that's what I have
Wow.
been told. And everything, so I take everything that I have ever been told about any of these bases with a grain of salt, right? Like Mark's
Yeah.
memory isn't the best, my own memory isn't the best. Uh, People weren't necessarily keeping great records back then, but what Ernie Ball has told me is that pink salmon was not a color that you could just get. That was a color that had to be requested.
Mm. Man, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I
Yeah,
know.
and at some point, so you had looped me in probably a month or month and a half ago, and I think you were kind of asking me more or less about the wood grain. I tend
Yeah,
to have a good eye for that kind of thing with authentication and such. And it's interesting because from a sports perspective, that's actually how they authenticate most game used bats, especially from eras, pre MLB certifications and stickers and
yeah,
letters and
yeah.
all that shit. But back in the day, if you say you've got a game used bat, the only way to do it is look up photos of old ones and try to match the wood grains. It's like a
Hmm.
fingerprint, like Allan said. None of
Yeah.
them will be exactly the same. And when you sent me that headstock and the other one, I took one look at it and I'm like, that's the same fucking base, man.
I Staggering. Like even when he sent when Babooshka first sent it to me, it just broke my head, and I immediately showed my wife, and she just looked at me like, "What are you looking at? These are just blobs, man." So
Yeah.
it was really reaffirming for you to be like, "No, this is how we do it in baseball." For you to be like, "No, that's it." That was like, yes, I know I'm not just seeing things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was such a and we've used that, like that's the same technique that I'm trying to use to figure out what happened to the graffiti yellow now. Is like I don't have headstock photos, but I can look at fretboards.
Yeah.
Is the and rosewood is so distinct and has such beautiful patterns in it. Um,
Hmm.
so using the wood grain to kind of figure it all out is just I love that level of detail. Like that I feel like is the encompassation of this whole base project, right? Is just getting into the dirt with this minor, quote unquote minor detail and using that to figure something out, like to
Yeah.
solve a mystery. And oh my God, now all of a sudden we've got Peachy.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
Dude, it's nuts.
That's fucking rad. So this thing shows up at your door. I mean, how
Uh,
stoked are you unpacking that damn thing?
I so I was so excited and I was trying to be so careful. I've watched the video back, and Liz Dynamite from the community made fun of me for it. She was like, "Look at Joey's face. He just like flat, just like no emotion." Is because I'm trying to not drop the bass, because I'm trying to like actually realize, oh my God, this is it. This bass was on Conan O'Brien. This
Mm.
it played across the states. Uh, it just it still doesn't make sense to me. Like I don't know. I've talked to a few people about it, trying to make sense of like this is something that I've seen only ever in 2D, right? I've seen it in photos, I've seen it in videos. So there's this abstract notion of it exists, but there's this disconnect between it exists and it's sitting on my workbench right now. Like shit, you can see the peachy color right behind me right here. I've got
Yeah.
it in pieces because it is disgusting and it needs to be cleaned. But it doesn't there's the part of me that gets it. It's like, oh shit, that's Mark's base. And there's the part of me that's like, it is a base. How could it possibly be that base? But it
Yeah.
fucking is. It
Yeah.
is. And it still, it still staggers me every time I look at it. Every time I scrape a little bit of Mark's sweat off of it, it's like that's his base.
It's crazy. Yeah, dude, we're so lucky. I don't
Oh my
think people
god.
realize how lucky we are that Davy Jones not only took so many rad photos back then, but
Yes.
is open
Oh
with
my
it and
god.
still around to chat about it because there are so many things that
Yeah.
Davy and his little camera he snuck on his nutsack into a show. It's responsible for a lot, man. I mean,
Oh
dude,
my
my
god. Yeah.
favorite picture he has ever taken is that you know it. It's Mark's hopping with Peachy with the hat on. That's my
Yep.
favorite picture
Ah.
that Davey took, and that's fucking crazy that that bass guitar Mark's playing right there is sitting right behind you.
It doesn't, again, it doesn't make any sense. And I have, to your point, yeah, I am so grateful for everything that Davey had, for all the cameras that he taped to himself. I am so glad that we have all of that, because it has been, without that photo that he took, I don't know that we verify this.
No,
I don't
that
know
thing's
that we do, because I haven't found another good headstock photo that shows what we would have needed it to show. It would have been a guess. It would have been a good guess, but that his photo is what helps us say that's Peachy.
Yep. Yeah. Without Davey's photo, that thing's still sitting on Craigslist, and some dad's gonna buy it for his son Jimbo to play at a 7th grade recital.
Oh, golly, that's nuts.
Unreal. So Mark has shown interest in reobtaining this. Have you thought about what you want to do with it? If there were to be some sort of trade, have you thought about what it would take? It's tough, dude. I know, dude, because I'm the same way, man. I got one of Tom's guitars sitting right there. And to me, I'm like, man, if Tom came to me and was like, Ryan, I need that fucking guitar back, I would have, I would try to find a way.
How do you say no?
No, Tom, fuck off. I would have to find a way. But it's tough, man, because not only, I mean, for us, this stuff costs a lot of money. Yeah. It's not like this was $5. But it also, there's a sense to these where I'm like, I'm not the home. It's kind of how I feel about it, but it is what it is. Tom, I don't think wants that back. But if Mark wants that, have you thought about it?
I ultimately, to your point where I'm still calling it Mark's bass, right? It is quite technically, legally, it is my bass, but I don't see it as my bass. I guess I'm almost looking at it like I'm the temporary owner, right? I do intend on getting it back to Mark. I don't know what I don't know what that looks like. I would love a trade, man. I would love to trade him for one of his basses, right? But considering the trend towards, he's trying to get back Groundskeeper Willie. He's looking for the Black Music Man. He was looking for this one too. Like literal days before we revealed that we had it, he was like, Black Music Man, Peachy, Groundskeeper Willie, bring them home. Yeah. It's like, well, shit, Mark. So I'm planning to, I want to record with Peachy, right? At first, I want to clean it up, but I want to record with it. I want to play it live. I want to use it the way that I would one of my own basses, right? I want to show it off. I want folks to be able to see it, not necessarily know that, hey, that's Mark's bass, right? I'm going to put an air tag in the case, for crying out loud. I'm going to hide that sucker in there. Anywhere Peachy goes, I'm going to know exactly where it is. But I think it is going to get back to Mark. I don't know what the trade looks like. I mean, in an ideal dream world, he would just hand me Scully and I could ride off into the sunset. But that is the most unreasonable idea in the world.
That's not a fair trade, in my opinion.
No. Oh my God, no.
I would veto that. If I was the commissioner, I would veto that. That's not happening.
It would never happen. Scully is my favorite bass. I wouldn't expect your listeners to know that, but that's why I specifically mentioned Scully. No, I would, if there was a bass that he was willing to trade for it, I would, I think it would be rad as hell to have the Always bass, his second hot pink Fender. He hasn't used it in almost 20 years, but I would never expect him to actually be like, yeah, you can have that bass, but I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to ask, hey, can I?
You got a little bit of leverage here.
Just a smidge until I'm in the practice space and Peachy's there too. And then it's like, oh shit, the doors close, Diaz is standing at the door. Jake's right in front of him and Mark's there. No, I think it'd be, there's the black bass with the black pickguard and the blue octopus sticker. I think that's just such an incredible combination. It's gorgeous. I would honestly, I would just love to have one of his toured basses. I think that would be super, super rad. But at this point, I'm not expecting anything like that. But fuck, would it be rad? It would be so cool.
I don't think we have a picture of Peachy being played alongside my Arnett Les Paul. As shocking as that is, because they were both played exclusively in 1998, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't think we do. But if we do, you and I should meet up and go to Jimmy John's, and we'll just set those guitars next to us. If these people only fucking knew how much Blink history is sitting here at this table.
God, right there. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back through all my photos and just see. I feel like I see it with the sticker strap. I'm gonna look through everything and see if I can track that down. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think we've got any of it.
If you see it, let me know. All right. Well, I'm glad it seems like it's safe, it's cherished, and wherever it ends up, you've got good intentions with it. So yeah, dude, that's awesome, man. I'm so stoked for you.
Thank you. It still doesn't make sense. I look at it. I hold it up to the light right now. Again, like I said, it's in pieces. So I'll examine each part and I'll be like, this is it. This is Peachy. But it's real. Like I don't know how you feel with yours, but it's just like this, again, a disconnect of why do I have this? How do I have this?
It's really hard for me to wrap my head around too. Like when I hold it to me, honestly, it just still feels like this can't be Tom's guitar. Like this is a random Les Paul, but it fucking is.
Oh my God. Like, could you imagine being in the position of the fella I bought this from, just buying it from a random, music store in northern Los Angeles, and all of a sudden you've got one of Mark's Stingrays. Like, what are the odds?
Well, that's rad that he pplayed it for 20 years and cared for it, though. I like that part of the story for sure. Man.
I do too.
All right. Well, that's awesome, dude. I appreciate you sharing, your story on both the project and Peachy.